Hi, I'm the Guitar Trooper, YouTube's favorite old guy. And this is Remember When.
And the hits just...
American automotive history was made on April 17, 1964, when Ford Motor Company revealed to the public a new car secretly using the underpinnings of the frumpy Ford Falcon, but with a new body and a new image to become the Ford Mustang. It was aimed directly at the boomer market and was an instant hit, ending up selling a tick over 400,000 units in the first year alone. Did you have one? Chances are that if you didn't, you wanted one, and although it was optional equipment, most of them had an AM push-button radio on them, too. What would you have heard on that radio if you had gotten one of those first Mustangs? The British invasion was certainly well underway. And remember that these songs aren't my picks. They are literally the top 10 hits directly from the Billboard Hot 100 for the week ending Saturday, April 18th, 1964, the week of the Mustang. Number 10, Dead Man's Curve, Jan and Dean, released December 4th, 1963. William Jan Barry and Dean Ormsby Torrance were the pioneers of the surfing and hot rod car songs that came to be called the California Sound. They met in junior high in 1956 and became quick friends. They played football and had adjacent lockers and began casually singing in the team shower, which soon led to a harmonized blend with other members of the team, including the as-yet undiscovered actor James Brolin. The school sponsored a talent contest, and the guys decided to enter the event as a doo-wop group with 4 other fellow players and call themselves the Barons. It was with this group that future Beach Boy Bruce Johnson occasionally sat in on piano and vocal. After the talent contest, the Barons dissolved, leaving only Jan Barry and Dean Torrance. Before long, the pair released Baby Talk, their first record, in 1959. After that, as they say, the hits just kept on coming. Jan Barry, a definitive genius with an IQ of 180, became friends with Brian Wilson when the Beach Boys were just starting out in 1961 and taught him about songwriting and recording. In 1963, Wilson passed an unfinished composition called Surf City to Jan, which Jan and Dean finished and recorded to become their first #1 single. It was followed in rapid succession by Honolulu Lulu and Drag City, before the number 8 Dead Man's Curve. The lyrics tell about a guy that races in his Corvette against a Jaguar XKE and loses control on Dead Man's Curve. It's an eerie foreshadowing of the near-fatal crash of Jan on April 12, 1966, when his Corvette Stingray collided with a parked truck. While the collision didn't happen at the 90-degree intersection of Whittier and Sunset, known as Dead Man's Curve, it wasn't too far away from that scene. The accident left Barry with a traumatic brain injury from which he never fully recovered and effectively ended the duo's career.
Oh, no, don't let the rain come down.
Number 9, Don't Let the Rain Come Down, Crooked Little Man, the Serendipity Singers, released February 1964. This light song was based on the English nursery rhyme, There Was a Crooked Man. The 1964 single, although the first single for this group, wasn't the first time that the song was recorded, though. That was Crooked Little House by Jimmie Rodgers in 1960 on his album At Home with Jimmie Rodgers, An Evening with Folk Song. The group started out in the University of Colorado Boulder as a 7-member folk music ensemble called the Newport Singers. They became quite popular, playing gigs around the Denver and Boulder area. In 1963, they received a telegram from an agent with the William Morris Agency in New York, offering them a recording contract. They moved to New York and met Fred Weintraub, who not only was the owner of the hip night spot The Bitter End, but was also the talent coordinator for the popular ABC television show Hootenanny. Fred agreed to manage them. He felt that the group could use some more people to round out the sound, though, so recruited 2 University of Texas students to join them. The Serendipity Singers lineup that recorded between 1964 and 65 were among the last of the folk music era ensembles in the mold of the New Christy Minstrels. The now 9-member group needed a different name, too, as there was already another act using the word Newport. Serendipity Singers was Fred's idea, and although the members were not initially thrilled with the name, they capitulated and so became the Serendipity Singers. After a couple of months of rehearsals, Fred booked them at the bitter end, where they were a regular act, playing 90% original songs, along with arranging 6 appearances during the fall of 1963 on ABC's Hootenanny. All of this exposure led to their recording contract with Phillips in 1964. Their first single, Don't Let the Rain Come Down, climbed to number 6 on the 29th of May, 1964, and also hit number 2 on the U.S. Adult Contemporary chart. The Serendipity Singers went on to release 6 albums on Phillips by the end of '65 and promoted them through appearances on popular TV variety shows. In spite of their efforts, though, the folk singer style went stale in the middle of the British invasion and their sales slumped. By 1970, after no singles charted under Phillips or a subsequent United Artists Records contract, there were no founding members remaining in the lineup and the band dissolved. Number 8. She Loves You, The Beatles, released August 23, 1963. John Lennon and Paul McCartney began composition of this song on the 26th of June, 1963, on the bus after they finished a concert date with the Roy Orbison Tour at the Majestic Ballroom in Newcastle upon Tyne. By the next day, at Paul's house, the song was complete. They recorded it in Studio 2 at EMI Abbey Road on the 1st of July, 1963. Paul's original idea was to have him sing She Loves You and then have the other 2 guys echo yeah, 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 but it wasn't long before that idea was axed and all 3 sang the entire line. The guys were enamored with the final major 6th chord of the song, as they were sure that nobody had ever heard it before. Although George Martin knew better, he didn't say anything to them at the time. I suppose that if you limit the population to kids that listen to just pop music, the guys might have been right, but George Martin had heard that chord many times before. An unexpected use of an acoustic guitar was also present on the recording. Even if you listen closely to the rhythm guitar on the recording, the sound of John Lennon's guitar is distinctly electric, but in fact, he was playing his Gibson J160E, a full-size acoustic guitar with a pickup in the sound hole, played through his Vox AC30. It surprises some people as well to learn that the idea of using a repeated prominent phrase, almost like yeah, 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 was used in another song well before the Beatles used it in this one. You can hear it, albeit in a different way, yay, 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 yeah, on the opening and run out of the song Temptation, recorded in 1961 by the Everett Brothers. It is interesting to note that She Loves You, recorded on a 2-track BTR machine, was never mixed in stereo. Like 3 other early Beatles singles, the original master is monaural. Also, this was the first single to be credited to Lennon-McCartney instead of the McCartney-Lennon that had been used on earlier recordings. Even though by this week in April 1964 it was number 8 and on its way down, She Loves You had spent 4 weeks at number 2 behind I Want to Hold Your Hand, and then replaced it for 2 weeks at number 1 beginning on the 21st of March. It was on the Billboard Hot 100 for 15 weeks and peaked at number 1 worldwide on 9 charts. Number 7. Glad All Over, the Dave Clark 5. Released 15th of November 1963 in the UK, 27th of December 1963 in the US. This was the London-based Dave Clark 5's first number 1 in the UK, knocking the Beatles out of that top spot in '64 and then going on to sell over 2.5 million copies. At least on paper, the Dave Clark Five was stiff competition for the Beatles, as they also had the same frenetic crowds that the Beatles experienced and the same required isolation from the public while on tour. The band also had 15 consecutive top 10 hits in the U.S. between 1964 and mid-66, bested only by the Beatles with a count of 20. By 1967, though, their popularity in the U.S. had fully diminished. Still, they did continue to have top 10 hits in the U.K. until 1970. This song peaked in the top 10 on 8 international charts.
Does he love me? I wanna know.
Number 6, the Shoop Shoop song. It's in His Kiss, Betty Everett, released January 1964. Betty Everett was not the first to record this song. Hers was predated by the 1963 single recorded by the great Mary Clayton.
Does he love me? I wanna know.
But Mary's version didn't even chart. Betty Everett's version was a different story, however, going to number 1 on the Cashbox R&B chart. It ended up being recorded by Betty solely because the A&R man from VJ Records, Calvin Carter, heard the song while he was scouting for material in New York City, and he got another song that he took to her that you probably recognize as a Linda Ronstadt hit, You're No Good.
Feeling better now that we're through.
He had her record You're No Good first, and it went to number 5 on the Cashbox R&B chart, showing number 51 on the Hot 100. After that success, he decided to have her record It's in His Kiss. The teenage session vocalist for VJ, the Opals, sang the famous background, including the Shoop Shoop. It's been covered a lot over the years, probably the most significant cover being by Cher in 1990.
Does he love me? I wanna know. How can I tell?
Which was an international hit and made it to number 33 on the Hot 100.
Listen. Do you want to know?
Number 5, Do You Want to Know a Secret? The Beatles, released 23rd of March 1964. This is the first song sung by George Harrison to make it to the top 10 in the U.S. According to John Lennon, he didn't write the song with the intent of George singing it, but rather made the decision in the studio. It was also a VJ Records release during the days when Capitol Records refused to market the Beatles records, believing that the group would not be valuable to the label. This was the fourth in a series of songs recorded by the band during a 10-hour marathon on February 11, 1963 for the Please Please Me album. The released version comes from Take 6, which was a full ensemble recording without edits, including Harrison's lead vocal. Only the harmony overdubs were subsequently added. By this week, it was on its way up to the number 2 slot on the Hot 100, which happened on May 9th.
Hello, Dolly.
Number 4, Hello, Dolly, Louis Armstrong and the All-Stars. Released January 1964. It was Louis Armstrong's only number 1 ever, and it holds the distinction of being the first non-Beatles number 1 hit in 14 weeks, ending their string of 3 in a row.
Suspicion.
Oh, it's my heart.
Number 3, Suspicion, Terry Stafford, released February 1964. This was a cover of an Elvis B-side, but the circumstances are more complicated than you would think. Elvis' version was recorded in March of '62 and included on his 1962 Potluck album, where it stayed until 1964. Stafford's version was an exercise of persistence. It was recorded in May of '62 at Bob Summers' recording studio in El Monte, California, and it was actually a 2-man recording. Allow me to explain. Bob was Les Paul's brother-in-law and had learned multitrack techniques from him. Using those recording techniques, Bob played all of the instruments on the track and even sang background vocals.
Suspicion.
Oh, it's my heart.
Well, Stafford shopped that demo to record labels for over a year. Fledgling label A&M wouldn't release Suspicion, but it did release one single of 2 other tunes, which went nowhere. Finally, John Fisher of Crusader Records agreed to release the song. In February of 1964, it hit the street on the Crusader label. Meanwhile, the Elvis recording, buried in an album since 1962, was released as a B-side single in May of '64 after Stafford's version broke into the top 10. Lost in B-side obscurity, Elvis' single failed to chart in the U.S., and only went to 103 on the main chart. It did do better in European release. An interesting side note to this recording is that the only payment Terry received for it was a few $1,000s in advance. After he released his second Crusader single, I'll Touch a Star, Crusader Records went bankrupt and no further payments were made.
Well, shake it up, baby, now. Shake it up, baby. Twist and shout.
Number 2, Twist and Shout, The Beatles, released March 2nd, 1964 in the U.S. A staple of the Beatles' live shows, their cover of Twist and Shout was recorded at the end of that marathon session on the 11th of February, 1963, when it was the last of 10 songs recorded for that album that day. John Lennon, nursing a head cold, had been singing all day and his voice was in shreds. Nevertheless, after taking a break to decide what the final song would be, all four Beatles went back to the studio and recorded Twist and Shout just as they played it in the nightclubs, live. They finished take 1, and George Martin tried another take, but John Lennon's voice was gone. So the released recording is take 1, start to finish, with no edits and no overdubs. It made the top 10 on 13 international charts. They played it in live shows all the way through the 1965 U.S. tour, the last performance being at the Cow Palace in San Francisco on August 31st. And now, number 1.
Can't buy me love, love.
Can't Buy Me Love, The Beatles, released 16th of March 1964 in the U.S., 20th of March 1964 in the U.K. This was written and recorded specifically for use in A Hard Day's Night. Its use during the movie was the breakout scene when the guys exit the rear door of the TV studio and run around on the field behind it. Now, what is significant here is that the original song slated for that scene wasn't this one. It was John Lennon's I'll Cry Instead, but Can't Buy Me Love was substituted because director Dick Lester felt that I'll Cry Instead simply didn't have the right emotional feeling for that scene. Consequently, I'll Cry Instead did not appear in the movie anywhere. But because of a rushed schedule to deliver soundtrack tapes to the United Artists for album production, I'll Cry Instead appeared on the soundtrack album anyway. 4 takes of the basic tracks were done at EMI's Pathé Marconi Studios in Paris. The first 2 included background vocals, and the third take was trashed. A playback of take 4 showed that no background vocals were necessary, and so take 4 is what you hear today, with Paul McCartney lead vocal added, plus a revised George Harrison guitar solo overdubbed later at EMI Abbey Road. The original demo version of the song did not start with the chorus either. That was George Martin's idea. Not only was Can't Buy Me Love a number 1 song on the Hot 100, but at the time it was posted, the Beatles had a total of 14 songs on that chart. This was a charting count record that stood for 38 years, until Kelly Clarkson broke it in 2002. These, of course, are not the only songs you would have heard on your 1964 Mustang AM radio, but if you had listened for just an hour or so, you probably would have heard all of these. Do you have any memories about the car or the music? Feel free to post your memories so we can all share them. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do me a favor. Click on that like, thumbs up icon and leave a comment. Let me know what you think. You can also use comments to suggest video subject matter regarding pop music and pop music culture all the way from the 1950s to the 1970s. A great thing that you can do to support the channel as well, and the Facebook page, is just sharing the video with your friends. Click on the arrow icon and pick the destination person and help us expand the audience. Speaking of supporting the channel, this would be a great time to subscribe if you're not yet a subscriber, or if you are watching this on Facebook and not yet a follower, start following the Facebook page. It's easy and it's free, and it lets YouTube and Facebook know that you support the channel. Just click on the follow button on Facebook or subscribe on YouTube on the channel main page, or click on the big purple icon that appears on the YouTube screen somewhere over here. And be sure to select the top notification bell on the drop-down menu so that you will be notified whenever I post new content for the public. If you would like the opportunity to see content on the YouTube a few days earlier when it is viewable only to channel members, you can upgrade your subscription to become a channel member. Just click on the join icon and follow the instructions. It's not a free thing to upgrade on the YouTube channel membership, but it's as dirt cheap as YouTube would let me make it. So give it a try. Thanks again for watching.